next few lessons, we'll be looking at the topic of economics, specifically with the lens on agriculture. So because a farm technically is a business, so now we'll be looking at the business side of things. We've looked at how to breed animals, the health of animals, and all those things of animals and animal husbandry. But the next bit is to look at it from a business standpoint. So that's why we do economics. And this is the last module actually for the year. So for the rest of the year, we'll be talking about economics. So first of all, there are a couple of things in economics that a farmer has to think about. The first thing is called a production factor. So there are four main production factors. The first we'll be looking at is land, because without land, a farm can't exist. Okay, technically speaking, it can exist, especially if you're doing something like aquaponics inside of a building. Okay, fine. But a building still is on a piece of land. So technically you do need land to do something. Okay, so in this case, this video, we're going to look at land specifically, and firstly, we're going to look at some functions of land. So we all know what land is. It's soil, it's minerals, it's all the plant life and everything living on it because of all the minerals in the soil and so on. But the main reason why farmers need land is to provide physical space. So again, physical space for your buildings, physical space to keep your tractors on, all your equipment you need to keep your animals on, all your livestock. So it's there for production, so producing crops, producing livestock, and also for processing. So processing mainly here refers to something like a canning factory. So any area where you actually process all the products that has been created or made from your animals or your plants. So it can be like a canning factory, canning goods, or it could be either an area where, like a milking parlor, where you milk your cattle, or where you shear your sheep, where you cast your wool. So any processing there of specific products, you need the space to actually do that. Secondly, land also provides raw materials, such as minerals in the soil. Without that, you can't grow anything from the soil. It also produces water. You've got your river systems, dams, lakes, those places, and also electricity. So, and specifically on a farm, generally you have your electrical poles or electrical wiring, and all these things needs physical space to be laid out. So all those specific things that allows electricity to be conducted from one area to the next, mainly from Eskom all the way through your electrical substations, and then it goes to the farms. So you need that for raw materials. Then also, you guys have to know that there are some specific characteristics to land. Okay, so these ones you guys have to know off by heart. Usually they give you a picture in the exam and they ask you identify the characteristic of land that is being shown here. So the first one is that land is limited. So here we've got a picture of a nice cityscape. I do believe this is Beijing, somewhere in China. And one of those cities, I think, is Beijing. And basically, land is limited means that most of the land we have on Earth globally is actually being used up by cities and towns, buildings. So a farmer can't use it for farming. So that which is there is actually very valuable because there's only so much left to actually produce and process your products on for farms. The rest is taken up by building skyscrapers and so on. So there's only a limited amount of land that can be used. Then secondly, land basically is very valuable. It's a valuable asset, meaning it can be used. Here it can be used for loans. So think of this in the briefcase. It means that land can be actually not really replace money, but it can be used as money. You can barter with it, you can lend it, you can actually use for transactional reasons. You can actually use the land. So it is worth something. So if you don't have money, you can put it up for collateral, or you can use it for loans and so on. So it is actually very, very valuable. Then thirdly, the productivity of land varies between areas. And you've got a picture of a couple of gemstones, and this is trying to represent the fact that different parts of different areas of land have different amounts of minerals and different types of minerals. So meaning your area could be very productive somewhere in the Eastern Cape, but let's say a farm in the Northern Cape will have low productivity because there's maybe less minerals, less water, it's very hot and humid, the entire area is different. So not just the minerals, but it could be the climate, the landscape, all those things together will either make a specific area of land, even if you have it, less productive or more productive. And this is important for a farmer to know actually what type of crops to grow there, or maybe what type of livestock can survive there. So these are also things that a farmer needs to take into account. Then also there is, or what would be the life expectancy of land? It is actually unlimited, meaning land actually cannot be destroyed. Sure, an area can be eroded, some water can go through, some soil can be washed away. So now technically this is like a big gap in the land and you can't use it, but you can actually restore. Eroded ground can be restored. It's going to take a long time, but technically land cannot be destroyed. It's not like there's going to be an empty hole and you can't do nothing. Even if there is a hole after a couple of years, you can actually put the soil back and so on. So technically land is unlimited. It cannot be unlimited in this case, meaning it cannot be destroyed. There's no expiry date to land. That's what that means here. So in the picture here, they show you that land appreciates with all the coins here they show. So over years, the value of land actually increases. So if you bought a piece of land 5 years ago, for argument's sake, say for 100,000 rand, over 5 years, 10 years, it's going to be worth 1 million rand. It'll never depreciate, it will always appreciate, hence the word here. So appreciation means when the value of something increases, and the value of land or property, in this case, where you put buildings and so on, it always increases. So it's actually a good investment to have. You'll never lose money out of the deal. So then also lastly is another characteristic of land, the law of diminishing returns. It is subject to this law. So basically what this law means is that the more you put into the land, it'll increase. Meaning if you put more minerals into the soil, if you fertilize, if you put more water into the soil, you can actually increase the productivity of that land. But there's going to come a point when even if you put more fertilizer in or you put more water into your crops and so on, the amount of products you produce, in the case of, let's say, maize or whatever, it will actually decrease. So in this case, I'm going to show in the next slide another example, but I love this picture. Have you guys ever heard the expression, too many cooks spoil the broth? So that's actually what they're trying to use here. If you are trying to make a broth, a stew, a soup, or whatever, you have one cook. So, okay, this guy has a limited amount of experience and he can only make a broth so good. If you add more cooks to this, more of his friends, more people come and help him, the productivity, the taste of the broth, and also the amount of broth will then increase. So actually improving what you're trying to create. So adding another cook isn't helping, okay, in this case, like it used to. So eventually it does increase, and then after a while it'll start decreasing the more friends try to help, because each person has his or own opinion of how this should taste or how it should look. So after a while then it starts to decrease as so many people try and change something. So what started out very, very good and beneficial eventually turns out very bad. So there's definitely too many cooks here not working anymore. So this is trying to show us what can happen in a farm setup as well if we try to improve the quality of the land and the quality of products we try to get out of it. Eventually, yes, you want to put more fertilizer, you want to put more stuff in, but after a while it will decrease. And the last one, this also shows us the law of diminishing returns. So basically it shows us like a hyperbole. That's the shape of the graph. It does increase whatever you're trying to do. So it shows us this this area, the output, meaning what do you get out of everything, overall quality of your work, total work created, whatever, meaning if you're putting the output would be, in case on a farm, you'll produce more sheep, or you'll produce more wool from that sheep, or if it's crops, you will produce more maize. Everything will increase. That's everything you get out of what you're trying to do on the farm. So output is good. You want more. That's the main goal. The input is what you put into something, meaning how much time, effort, money, other resources it takes for you to allow your output to increase. So you actually want your input to be less than your output because you want to make more money than spend money. That's the main idea. So again, it shows us that if you do put more in time, effort, money into something and on the farm, it will increase what you get out of it. So it's very productive here. But after a while, it'll start diminishing again. Think back on the more cooks you try and put in, because there your resources would be the friends trying to help you. But after a while it starts to decrease. It's just how it is. Meaning you can only add so many fertilizer or so much water to crops. After a while they'll start drowning from too much water. After a while, if you put too much fertilizer in, they could be poisoned and die. So again, here's your negative returns. This is where you start losing money and start losing what you have less output. But right over here, well, technically would be on this spot right here, because it's still increasing. From this area it starts to decrease, but they're trying to show us here the gray shaded area is where you have your total output. This is that sweet spot where you're putting enough input in and getting enough output for output out, I want to say, anyway, from what you want to achieve. So this just shows again the law of diminishing returns. The land itself is subject to this. Okay, so they love asking this characteristic. You have to be able to explain also the law of diminishing returns, and try and explain it again with, if you've got crops, fertilizer, water. That's the easiest way to say it. You can use livestock as well, but that's what they're trying to show here. So for a farmer, this would be the ideal place for him to get enough out of his farm, and also putting enough into it, enough time, effort, money, and so on, and actually getting something for his effort. Okay, and then we have lastly, also again still on land, methods to increase land productivity. So meaning again, if the farmer again, if he knows his farm doesn't have, or his soil doesn't have enough minerals, or there's something that he is lacking on his land, he can improve it. So a couple of things. We mentioned irrigation, meaning more water. You can, at the bottom here, add more water to your field, your pasture, whatever, to increase more the productivity of more plant life. So for your animals to graze on or to bale later on or whatever. So irrigation is something we can do to increase productivity. Secondly, fertilizers, we mentioned, adding more minerals to the soil. And thirdly, crop rotation, so rotating the type or changing the type of crops we plant on this piece of land year to year. So every season or every year we use a different crop type on the soil. That's to prevent if we keep on planting, let's say maize, the maize will eventually use up all the minerals or a specific mineral from the soil. So if we rotate the type of plants, it will use up less minerals. Then also fourthly, we can reclaim the eroded soil. So again, if you've got an area that has been eroded away by water, whatever, you can reclaim it. It's going to take a while, but the soil will come back after a while, or we can actually fix the soil, add soil back to that area, whatever. So we try and reclaim it. We don't just see an area that has been eroded and think, okay, it's useless, we can't use it. We try and use it. Then also we can reshape non-arable land. Non-arable means non-usable. We can't use a specific area. It could be something like eroded soil. So we can reshape it. Here they give an example as terraces. So here we see some terraces. This is actually on a slope. On a hillside. So generally people don't actually plant on hillsides because it's too straight down, everything will fall off. I mean, how do you prevent water from running down the hill? And the answer then is terraces. So we make like these little plateaus, flat areas, and then we can actually grow something there. We can get there with a combine, we can get there with a tractor, and water generally, okay, it will run off, but we can minimize the runoff of water. And lastly, multiple uses, so meaning we can use different types of crops, different types of livestock. Okay, so here I've got a nice picture of crop rotations, meaning every year, every season, you plant something else. And with multiple uses, meaning for this piece of land, fine, yeah, we can allow some animals, livestock to graze, but maybe the next season or the next year, we can actually plant some crops here. So again, that's what they mean with multiple uses. The same piece of land, we can use it either for crops or we can use it for livestock. Diversify. That's mainly the main thing what we need to do. And that's it for the first lesson.